Good morning again. If you're watching this on video, this time you're going to wish you were here today and not just watching, because we're going to have a lot more conversation than normal. This is kind of a challenging passage that we're going to jump into today from Exodus. The way the curriculum and the lesson is designed, it's not challenging. It's very simple. There's a story, there's an application. You either learn or you don't. However, we're going to look at it from a bunch of different angles, and we're going to see that God's Word can actually teach us multiple things. You can read one thing one day and it speaks to you in one way, and then read the same thing another day and it speaks to you a different way, and then read the same passage a year later and it speaks to you differently, because all of the above are true. So we're going to see that in this passage there's a whole lot going on. Real quick, let's start off with kind of a little bit of a poll. When somebody's doing something ugly, nasty, mean, harsh, wrong to you, what are your options?
Ignore it.
Ignore, okay. What? Who said that? Wow, Susan says fight back.
That's retaliate.
Yeah, that's good.
Wait a minute. Is retaliate and fight back the same thing?
I guess so.
Okay. Retaliate. So I'm going to say that's like vengeance.
That could be,
But this is defense.
yeah.
Okay, is there a difference?
Yeah,
Yes.
sure.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay, so what are our other options?
Kill them with kindness.
Kill them.
I said with kindness.
Oh.
I would
Gonna kill ya.
Okay, heaping coals of kindness on your enemies' heads. Okay, what else? What are other options?
You could appeal to a higher authority.
Oh, okay.
That's not what I'm doing.
Well, actually, you're appealing to the city of Plano.
And there's a whole lot of higher authorities, depending on if it's a job-related issue, right? Or municipal or federal or family. Okay? What else? What's another one? What's another option? Somebody's doing something mean, ugly, bad, corrupt, destructive, harmful to you. What are your options?
Talk to them.
Okay, confrontation. We'll call it carefrontation.
It's kind of touchy-feely there.
Tell me how that works out.
Yeah, that's my business training showing up. It's not confrontation, it's carefrontation.
Okay, Care Bear.
Well, people don't care how much you know unless they know how much you care. Okay, so is there another option? That's another option. Negotiate. Okay. Robert?
You can move out, quit your job, leave town.
In other situation.
You know what? That's different than ignore. So in
Leave
in
the
counseling,
area.
what's that called?
Leave the area.
Running away.
Yeah. There's a word for it. Avoidance. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. Aggressive avoidance.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Do we have another one? This is a good list.
Number 9.
What?
Get your cat after them.
Get your cat after them. I think that goes into either the defense or the retaliation, depending
Think
on.
of anything else.
Are there defense cats?
Mediation.
Is it the same as
Negotiate. Well, we're going to add that here. I like it. This would be kind of like directly with them. Mediation would use a third party to come in.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Is there another option?
You could buy them out. If you got a partner you don't like, just buy them out. Cash them out.
So, bribe.
I don't know if it's called a bribe.
Hey, you know what? I've heard it said, enough money gets you anything you want.
We're forgetting a big one.
Just offer to buy that guy's house, and you know, the right amount of money, he'll leave.
We should do like the State Department, appeasement.
Okay, so isn't that kind of like ignore?
Not really. Ignore, appeasement is actively going along with whatever they're doing.
So appease, yeah, maybe join them. Support it. What's that?
Like Chamberlain and Hitler back in the 1930s.
Yes.
Yeah, easement, yeah.
Yeah, kind of just go along to get along.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Yeah. There's one I'm looking for, and we're on number 11. We still haven't even gotten to it yet.
Pray first.
Pray. Oh my goodness. We're-
Notice that came after like that.
So, isn't this just a picture of us as human beings? Like, we got 10 options before we even take it to the Lord. Okay. That's what we're talking about today. So, in this passage, Exodus 17, starting in verse 8, it's a continuation of a story, really. Because last week we looked at this whole incident where Israel has gone through the Red Sea, they're in the wilderness, they didn't have water, they didn't have food, and God's got to provide for them. And so there's quail and there's water from the rock and all these miracles happen. And you know, I was reflecting on this over the week, and I was thinking, you know, here are these Israelites complaining about their circumstances. Meanwhile, their bellies are full because they just had banana bread in the morning. And they've got a cloud that's shadowing them from the heat of the sun during the desert daytime that follows them everywhere. It's right there, giant cloud, you can't miss it. And at night there's a giant pillar of fire giving them light and warmth. And they're saying, is God really with us or not? Meanwhile, there's all these manifestations around them that God is there 100% of the time, has never left them. And so, you know, as I was thinking about this, you know, we have all these great takeaway points. You know, we can cry out to God and we can complain or not complain. We can, you know, trust the Lord to provide what we need. But the context of this story is there's all of these evidences around them already that God's there. And they're still whining and complaining. It's like, what a mess. Today, we're going to talk about the first time Israel enters a war. They're attacked. And it's brutal, it's ugly. The main point is God's our king and our warrior, no matter what our circumstances. He goes into battle with us. Okay? With us. He's not always going to do it for us. But the Lord will fight our battles. We always should trust Him. We need other believers around us because we can't do it alone. I know of people all the time, they tell me, well, I don't need to go to church. I believe in God. I read my Bible. No, there's a reason why we have a community of believers. And then choosing God as our king to be not just our Lord, but also our warrior savior, our king, our battle master, is the only way we're going to get through this. So key point number one is the Lord will fight our battles. We just need to trust Him. So let's start off by reading Exodus 17, starting in verse 8. Somebody read the first slide.
Is that complete after this?
Okay, after this. So why is that there? Why does the verse start out with after this? What's he referring to?
What happened before?
What happened before?
Struck the river. Struck the rock and got.
Okay, struck the rock, more miracles. They were complaining. God answers their needs. Okay, so we have this pattern of God gave them gold and silver, leaving Egypt. God killed all the Egyptians. God gave them water. God led them with a cloud by day. You know, all these things are occurring, and now things get worse. So after this, the Amalekites came and attacked the Israelites at Rephidim. This is something we're going to dig into a little bit so you understand and appreciate the context, because Israel did nothing wrong, yet they were attacked. So this is their first war. Let's talk about who the Amalekites are. Somebody read Genesis 36:12.
Additionally, Timnah, a concubine of Esau's son, Eliphaz, gave birth to Amalek. These are the grandsons of Esau's wife, Adah.
Who's Esau?
Jacob's brother.
He's hairy brother.
Yeah, the hairy brother. He was the one who had the birthright, but sold it for a pot of stew because he was hungry, right? Oh man, that venison stew looks amazing coming in from hunting. And so he gave up his right to be the heir. But now he's got a concubine who has a son, and we have Amalek coming down through this line. So anytime there's concubines, there are trouble. Boy, you look back at our study of David several months ago, and you look at where his family troubles stemmed from. It was all these illicit relationships that he had in his life that just continued to manifest as problems. So we've got this Amalek person that gives that comes along here now, and they give rise to like this nomadic, like Bedouin-like warrior nation that travels around, that is very, very ruthless. In Deuteronomy 12 verse 12, we see a little more detail. Somebody read the verse.
The Horites used to live in Seir, but the descendants of Esau drove them out. They destroyed the Horites from before them and settled in their place, just as Israel did in the land of the Lord, the land that the Lord gave them as their possession.
So we have this random story dropped into Deuteronomy about who the descendants of Esau were. They literally moved into this place where the Horites used to live and utterly destroyed them, drove them out, and took over their city. So that was the kind of ruthless peoples they were. And then in Deuteronomy 25, starting in verse 17, we're told a little bit more. Somebody read this slide.
Remember what the
Amalekites.
Amalekites did to you along your way from Egypt, how they met you on your journey when you were tired and weary, and they attacked all your stragglers. They have no fear of God.
Does anybody know this story? You know what this is referring to? Okay, so you've got the Israelites that are making their way out of Egypt, right? And they cross over the Red Sea at some point, and now they're in the wilderness, and you got this trail of people. How many? Well, we know 600,000 men, plus women and children, so north of 2 million. So what does a line of 2 million people look like?
Spread out.
Woo! Yeah, that's miles of people, and remember they have all their cattle and their sheep and their herds with them. Okay, it's a huge caravan. And who's in the front? Yeah, the leaders and the warriors, they're protecting the group, right? Who's in the back? Stragglers. Women, children, the infirm, people that can't keep up. So these guys are going to go make sure that there's a safe place for the next place where they're going to camp. They're going to settle, and then the stragglers are going to come in slowly, right? I mean, if you've ever been on a hike with a bunch of people, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, so Amalek, they come in from the rear, and they attack and start killing all the women and children and elderly. That's their attack. And so this reference here is when you were tired and when you were weary, they attacked your stragglers because they had no fear of God. Remember, the Egyptians, they feared the Lord of the Israelites. And the word got out throughout all the nations that the God of Israel had destroyed the Egyptian army and delivered the plagues on Egypt and all these things. And so there was this general respect for the God of Israel, not the Amalekites. They had no fear of God. Okay, that's who we're dealing with. This is not just somebody with like bad intentions. This is evil personified. Okay? Somebody continue reading.
After this, the Amalekites came and attacked the Israelites at Rephidim.
So Israelites did nothing. They're just cruising through the wilderness and they get attacked. Is this still happening to Israel today?
Yeah.
Wow. So fast forward thousands of years and they're still getting unprovoked rocket attacks into their non-military environments. Exact same thing continues to happen. But this is their first war. Now, do you think they're prepared for battle? You think they're like, call up the 3rd Regiment, 1st Regiment, take, flank position and, start, moving around, getting ready to attack the Amalekites? You think that's what happened?
They have nothing.
Don't even have an army.
Ha!
Any preparation.
Right. What have they been doing for the last 400 years?
Yeah,
Right.
making bricks.
So what do they know how to do? So how are they going to defend off this warrior nation that is accomplished at destroying people and cities and taking over? Remember, destroying the Horites. How are they going to deal with this? It really begs this question of what are we supposed to do? I think we can take this away. A lot of times when we read Scripture, we look at it in context and we say, well, this is only applicable to the Israelites or to Peter or to whatever the circumstances are in the Bible. But a lot of it is for our edification today. So if we believe that the story has some practical application today, what are we supposed to do when we get attacked? We didn't do anything wrong. It's an unfair attack. How are God's people supposed to respond?
Ask God to fight your battle, help you with it.
Do we have a song like that, Mr. Choir member?
Yes.
How does that go?
Yeah, no, the battle is the Lord, let's see. I'm fighting. a
He'll fight my
battle.
battles.
I'm fighting the battle you've already won. Yes.
Yeah. So how often do we do that? I think we already got the answer when we went through the list of options on what we think about in terms of how to respond to stuff. Somebody continue the rest of the story.
So Moses said to Joshua, choose some of our men and go out to fight the Amalekites. Tomorrow I will stand on the hilltop with the staff of God in my hand.
This is kind of random, but when we were talking about Moses striking the rock and having the water come out, God referred to it as, Moses, take your rod. And now Moses is saying, oh no, this is the rod of God. So God's probably saying, no, Moses, it's your rod. And Moses is saying, no, it's your rod. No, it's yours. Moses doesn't want to take credit for something that God's doing because he knows it's the power of the Lord. It's not the stick, it's not his hand, it's not him, it's the Lord. So what's interesting is God's using an implement or a tool to effect justice or to effect some type of a miraculous outcome, but he's using people and certain things. In this case, he's got a rod. So, question. How come they didn't all just get on their knees and pray? Because the battle belongs to the Lord, right? Battle's already won. All we need is the Lord. That's our lesson. All we need to do is just trust him. How come they didn't just get on their knees and just pray and have God just rush a sandstorm in and destroy all the Amalekites like the Red Sea?
I think they're not used to asking. They're not ready for that yet.
Come on.
We want action.
What?
We want action.
Who wants action?
We feel like we've got to do something. That's our world we live in too. We got to do something.
Well, we have a right to defend ourselves.
Yeah.
Well, what about turn the other cheek?
Oh,
Scenario.
wow.
If you,
Okay.
somebody da-da-da on your cheek, turn it up. Sorry.
There was a pastor that preached on this, and he gave that as an example that someone breaks into your house with a gun.
Yeah.
That's different than someone,
Calling you names.
yes, or, I don't know, cheating you after money, or,
The context.
yeah.
There's a context to everything. And I think the context of turning their cheek was like if someone maybe insults you or, you know, turn the other cheek, but if someone is trying to kill you, then maybe self-defense, you know.
Is that thou shalt not kill though?
No.
But as far as
I mean, you
why
could
they didn't
Murder
come
and kill too.
sit down and pray, they should have. But God sometimes wants us to take responsibility as well. And he you know, God foresees that one day, you know, he's going to have, you know, his goal is for these people to inhabit this land.
Okay. So are we supposed to take responsibility and take action and defend, or are we supposed to pray? Yes. Okay. So we're going to see that's what Moses did. So, but I want to provoke this conversation because I think this is very material to where we're at right now. Because whether we're talking about political persecution, religious persecution, work-related discrimination, I mean, we could make a long list, a whole nother list of things that are real-life examples of how we're attacked unfairly. And so, in this case, were they prepared for this? No, we just said they weren't prepared. So, they're still going to do something, though. We're going to see this in the story. Let's continue this. Somebody read this slide.
Joshua did as Moses had instructed him and fought against the Amalekites with Moses, while Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill. As long as Moses held up his hands, Israel prevailed. But when he lowered them, Amalek prevailed.
Okay, let's get the scene. So Joshua is following the instructions of Moses, and that is take some of our men and go out and fight those guys. Don't just sit and pray. Go out and fight. Why? They're defending all of the people. It's not just about their life. It's about the lives of all the other innocents that are in this group. So they're taking a defensive posture. Absolutely. So Moses says, go out and fight. And then at the same time, he says, I'm going to go up to the top of the hill. Now, this continues. And Moses said to the people, fear not, stand firm, and see the salvation of the Lord. Okay, that is not just prayer. That is also faith. Would you agree? For he will work for you today. For the Egyptians whom you see today, you shall never see again. This is from the story of the Red Sea. He's telling the people, don't worry, God's got this. The Lord will fight for you. You only need to be still. Does that happen? Yes, they already experienced that with the Egyptians in the Red Sea. You know, wherever we go in the Bible, we see that our battle is not against flesh and blood. Okay, we've gone through this at some level of detail from Ephesians chapter 6. Our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, the authorities, the powers of this world's darkness. So these are in reference to the hierarchy of spiritual evil that is in this world, that governs this world. Whether they're principalities over nations, nation states, and geographies, or specific types of habitual sin. There are demonic entities, fallen angels, that are responsible for the influencing of men to do all types of evil. Hay showed me a video a couple days ago about a student that went into a school, and the security camera caught him entering with a gun, and he was going to start killing other students. And one of the teachers recognized him and apparently knew him, and started talking to him, got close enough to grab the gun, move it to the side, and then give the kid a hug. And the kid just melted down and let go of the gun, started crying, and just hugged and hugged and hugged and hugged and hugged this teacher. It was very, very emotional just watching it. You got a comment?
Kind of on that. That's amazing. That really is, that's amazing. I'm not sure if I shared this with y'all or not. About a month ago, May 1st, my parents in Houston woke up to this loud noise, and their next door neighbor was shot 13 times when he was leaving for work. They thought a drive-by, they weren't sure, kissed his wife goodbye. He had worked at FedEx for 30 years, and he was in his driveway, and all the neighbors, including my parents, said that it sounded like somebody was banging on their garage door with a shovel. So my dad jumped up and went to go look, and he didn't see anything, and about an hour later, they had the whole street roped off that he had, been murdered. And anyway, he had been at FedEx for 30 years. The gentleman that killed him was a 21-year-old boy who had gotten in a fight with his supervisor at work and found out where he lived and stalked him for a week until it was time to shoot him in his own driveway. So not only was there that family's life ruined, but also this 21-year-old kid, he ruined his family as well.
Sure.
So I mean, there's all sorts of violence, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah, if you knew, the books by C.S. Lewis on spiritual warfare remind us that whether we're paying attention or not, there is a supernatural war going on 100% of the time all around us. Even right now, there's attempts to distract us, influence our environment, tempt you, put thoughts in your mind, destroy the environment, whatever. Our struggle is spiritual, always. And when we see physical manifestations of it, those are manifestations of evil. So when we have battles in this physical realm, that's also spiritual. It's both, always. So let's look at God's response to this whole thing, because it's interesting to see how God does not have an appreciation for what Amalek does. In Deuteronomy 25 and 17 and follows, it says, "When the Lord your God gives you rest from the enemies around you in the land that he's giving you to possess as an inheritance, you are to blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven. Do not forget." This is an absolute, utter destruction of the Amalekite people forever. God's response is, when you get settled, okay, go ahead and get to where you're going. When you get settled, come back, utterly destroy this community of people, this tribe, this nation, blot them out from memory forever. Okay, God's response is harsh, but it's also physical and spiritual. It's both also, because they're all going to die. But where are they going after death? Eternal separation from God, forever. So absolute utter destruction is not only a reference to physical death, it is absolute separation from God forever. So how did Moses demonstrate that he trusted the Lord? Bad situation happening. Moses says, you guys go out and fight. I'm going to go to the top of the hill. I'm going to take the rod of God with me. How does that demonstrate Moses' trust in the Lord?
Well, just, telling people the fact that he's going to go up to the top of the hill and raise his arms, he's believing that God is going to deliver them, and that act of faith is going to make a huge, deliver them from their enemies.
God didn't tell him to raise his arms.
No.
He's got prior experience, so.
Okay, he's got prior experience.
Well,
What?
It was still an act of faith, though.
Yes,
It
yes.
was still an act of faith, whether God told him that or not. It's something that he believed in his heart, and he carried it out.
Yeah, I think if we read between the lines, it's something like, you guys go fight, I'm going to go pray. I'm going to go talk to God. Okay, so again, it's both. So if God was going to fight for the people, or if our battle was only spiritual, why did Joshua even have to go out and fight? Why did that have to happen?
Amalek would have kept doing what they were doing.
Could it be that God wanted to use Joshua and the mighty men of Israel to execute judgment on Amalek?
Yes.
Ooh. So when we're looking at this from, he's going to go fight. That's fight back, defense, right? That's option 2. Moses says, you go out and fight. We're looking at it from this side. We're going to now go fight back. But God's looking at it from an eternal perspective. I'm going to use you to not only defend life, but also execute judgment on someone who is evil. Very interesting. You see why I'm saying that these stories have so much to them? It's not just reading a quick story. There's so many different things here. So, what are you facing right now that looks physical, but it's probably also spiritual? Somebody that hasn't shared something, or we don't know, are you willing to share something that maybe you're going through that seems like a physical battle, but maybe it's a spiritual battle? Maybe it's both.
Well, I'll share something. This is not my comfort zone.
Thanks.
But I have a colleague that since I've been at my job for a year and a half now, and I have one colleague that she has the personality of, she's always right. She will go out of her way to prove that she's right, but she does it in a kind manner. So, I mean, to me, this is where I pray, and I've been praying for God to change her heart, my heart, help me deal with it. So this is not a retaliation. God doesn't want me to, and I have a vengeful nature. So I pray for killing with kindness. I'm doing that. Every morning I pray that God helps me through my day, how I communicate with her, my words. So it's not physical, but it is word physical, I guess. So that I've been dealing with for like a year and a half, and God's will, and I'm now, okay, God, bring me another job. I've discussed it with my boss. My boss does not. It's a whole. It's a dynamic going on. But yeah, prayer.
So, okay, yeah. So you bring up this good point that there's this combination that feels like the right answer. It's prayer to the Lord, petitioning to the Lord, crying out to the Lord like Moses did. It's also faith. It's because God really wants us to have faith in Him. Like when we demonstrate lack of faith, when we worry and all that, it really, really creates problems spiritually for us. And the consequences in the New Testament of lack of faith is severe. So we know that's important. But then it's also some type of, we'll call godly action. And we see this as a pattern here where they're not told to do nothing, but they are told to have faith and to pray and go out because God's got this. Okay, so it's this combination of things. And I would argue that if you do all those things, you're not going to do something wrong. So where should you be standing up to fight back today with something, even knowing that the battle belongs to the Lord? What's happening in our world right now where it demands us to fight back? And not just say, we'll pray about it and let God handle it all. Culture war in the United States and Europe, other places, for sure.
School board meetings would be an example.
Yeah, I remember when I was in my 20s and I was in full-time ministry, I used to go to the public school districts and visit the libraries. Back then you could get in even though you didn't have to show ID. And I used to check out all of the books on witchcraft and Satanism and homosexuality. And I wouldn't return them. It was fun. I felt like a rebel. Was that an admission of some crime? I don't know. But those statute of limitations. Okay, so but I would pull all those things out. If I got billed, I would just pay for them. But I would use them when I went to speak to groups. I would say, parents, see, this is the stuff that your kids are reading in school. And we see videos today of people who visit the school district meetings and they read the violently pornographic and homosexual content right in the school board meeting. And the school board directors and the leaders, they say, stop that, you're not allowed to speak that way here. That's profanity. No, it's in the children's books. How can it be in the library and not be allowed here. So absolutely.
I know, like, I noticed today I'm on social media and everything's about the LGBTQ now for the month, and I've just had to start
Pride Month starts.
blocking all of those out.
I think you jogged the memory here about spiritual versus life. I went to it's called a True Text Project meeting in Old Money, Dallas, about 2.5 months ago, to listen to a woman read the pornography that you're referring to out of the Highland Park High School library. She had taken them out and was reading them. It is the most profane, twisted, ill stuff I've ever heard, and it was I think it was 7 men to 14 women in there, and the women, after about 4 minutes, were like, we're getting the point, we don't need to hear anymore.
Right.
This was the shocker for me. The lady who was up front calling attention to this was being sued by a woman that was in the room behind me, about 2 rows. I couldn't believe the dichotomy and what spiritual forces had to be in effect on the poor lady suing this woman trying to do right. It was a real odd, troubling situation.
So the fact that all of that stuff is already in our environment. It's in the kids' schools, it's online, it's in media, it's in advertising, it's everywhere. You can't find a Calvin Klein advertisement that's not homosexual in nature or transsexual or something. I mean, it's everywhere, okay? It's an abomination. We've already been attacked by spiritual Amalek. It's already happening, folks. And if you're in the middle of this little community here, just walking along with your sheep, and you're not aware of the attack that's occurring from behind, you need someone to bring this to your attention because it's already occurring. We need other believers to help us. We need each other. We cannot do this alone. That's the next point. So, somebody read this verse.
When Moses' hands grew heavy, they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it. And then Aaron and Hur held his hands up, one on each side, so that his hands remained steady until the sun went down.
So God didn't tell Moses to do this. Somebody just mentioned it. He had prior experience. He knew to go to God. So he went to the highest place where he could see what was going on. He took his rod of God with him, the staff that God had given him, and now he's literally, what does this look like? Prayer, praise, worship. God, I need you. Okay? So we see this spiritual example in a physical realm, absolutely. When Moses' hands grew heavy, they took this stone, they put it under him. Now, God didn't tell him, raise your hands. He probably realized at some point that as he was praying to the Lord, they were winning. Oh, I'm so tired. Oh, they're losing. Oh my gosh. Okay, I better pray some more. Oh, they're winning now. Oh, wow, they're losing. Winning, losing. Winning, losing. Okay, I get it. So at some point he probably realized, okay, when we have the hands up and we're in worship and prayer, seeking the Lord, and so that's when his friends jump in, and what does that tell us? We can't do it alone. We need people around us to lift us up and support us. So why do you think God let the battle go on this long? I mean, it takes a while for your arms to get tired, and the Bible seems to suggest that this battle occurred all day. Why did God allow this to happen? Israelites don't deserve this. You don't deserve what you're going through. We don't deserve what we're going through. In America, we don't deserve what we're going through. What? Says who? Why does God allow it?
I think to prepare them.
Lesson, preparation.
Preparation for what's ahead.
I'll add judgment. Like Susan said, who said we didn't ask for it? So what does this story tell us about the need for supporting each other?
We need to support each other.
Oh, okay.
What I find oftentimes, probably more often than not, is that if it's a non-believer or a believer that isn't strong in their convictions, and you say there's a spiritual battle going on and this is why, they don't want to hear it, they don't believe it. But on the other hand, with the Christian, I find that they say, you know, it's all part of God's plan, don't have any fear, read Matthew 21 or 24, you know, and you feel kind of like less, you feel kind of like you're standing alone, or that you shouldn't have the human feeling of being, having fear, because God says don't fear, trust in me, you know, so it's kind of like difficult.
Okay, you said a few things. Fear, where does it come from?
Doubt.
Satan, ultimately. I mean, it is a tool he uses all the time because it gets us to, like Peter, look at the waves and the rain and the storm instead of having our eyes focused on Christ. Okay, and that's when you sink. So fear is extremely destructive, kind of like doubt in the life of a believer. But you also said that sometimes people, especially Christians, will say, well, we don't need to do anything about that. God will handle it. Okay, so what are the different versions of that we hear? God will handle it. What else?
Do you mean things along that nature?
Yeah.
I've heard this phrase a lot. Hope is not a strategy.
Hope is not a plan.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. What else? Why do Christians, or what do Christians say that absolves themselves of getting involved? God's in control. What else? How about not my battle?
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't affect me. It's happening to somebody else, different group, different community, different country. Not my problem. What else?
Don't want to get involved.
It doesn't matter if it doesn't matter if I do get involved. Nothing I can do about it.
Yeah.
Okay. What else? So cannot influence. What do Christians, what's the excuse for not voting?
It won't make a difference.
Oh my gosh. Okay, one at a time. What?
My vote doesn't matter either.
Okay, it doesn't matter. What else?
I'm just one person, same thing.
It's lesser, you're choosing between the lesser
there are
of two
two
evils.
Oh my gosh. Okay. What else? What are all these excuses why Christians don't want to get involved? Anything else? Is that enough?
They're afraid.
Okay, afraid. Apathy. I'll add ignorance, just completely unaware. Not necessarily a conscious choice. Maybe the conscious choice of I don't want to know. I don't want to know. What else?
We get demoralized.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's discouraging. I don't want to know.
I know people that use their age, you know, I'm, you know, I'll be dead soon, or, you know, this doesn't matter because
Oh my gosh.
this generation.
I always say we're not gonna be here anyway.
Yeah,
Oh.
I
yeah.
mean, one day the Lord will come take us, well, not, I mean, I help people, but I mean, you know.
Yeah, well, and I've also heard, well, we're getting ready for the tribulation anyway. You can't stop what's coming.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all kind of true, but does that mean we're not supposed to do anything
No.
when Amalek attacks? So Joshua overwhelmed Amalek with his army and with the sword. They killed the Amalek army. The Amalekites were destroyed in this army. God was a God of physical destruction. So, How can we be an encouragement and support to each other? We've got situations around us. We have all kinds of stuff that happens to us. We have the propensity to make the wrong decisions. And then we have the wrong, lame excuses for those decisions. Maybe it's a good thing we have each other. Because, I mean, I got the proof on the board here. These were my answers. Like, this isn't my teaching. This is your answers. This is typical. So, how can we support each other as Christian leaders, as believers, as people of faith, in our community, in our life group, in our families? How can we support each other?
Well, one way is not to be afraid to share. We've all been through stuff.
Okay, personal
And
testimony.
yeah,
Love it.
you know, and if you need prayer and help, let people know. I ran into that this week with the, power outage for 4 days. Did I hear from anybody? Not really. Nobody did. But then again, I looked at back and said, did I check on anybody else's phone?
Wow.
Did you call
Ouch.
anybody?
Yeah, did I call anybody?
I wouldn't know.
I was
I mean,
on,
I'm down the street.
it was on Telegram, I just.
Oh, it was on Telegram?
Yeah.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, it was, but that's on me, just the fact that's all I'm talking. But I didn't reach out to anybody else.
Boy, you probably thought it would be on any minute, be on any minute.
I did.
Be on any minute.
I did.
So we did invite somebody over who was out of power. I had grandma lived and couldn't breathe well in a non-conditioned house. So they came over for a day and a half
Wow.
That's good.
and chilled.
Do you know why these are called life groups?
Because you've got to do life together.
Right. This is supposed to be where you're developing community and relationships to be able to do life together when things are going well and when things are not. And if you don't have the kind of friendships starting to be created in this community that you can rely on when you're without power or without encouragement or in tough circumstances. I had somebody not that long ago tell me, he was part of our group. I won't say who, but he was financially in a very, very difficult spot. And I was able to give him some cash just right on the spot to help him out. But he felt comfortable talking about it, and I felt comfortable because I know who he is. Absolutely, I'll help. It's God's money anyway. If you don't have those kinds of relationships being cultivated in your life group, where else are you going to get them? You obviously need them. We know from Scripture it's important, and that there is this other element, if we want to create a formula, that it is others who support us that produces a positive outcome. So you want the formula from the passage, there it is. Our final point here is when we choose Christ as our King, as our Lord, He's the battle master. He's the warrior. He's the guy that's going to come in on a white horse and utterly destroy the armies attacking Israel in the final battle. He's the one that's going to judge all the nations and all the people, the 97% or whatever it is, that did not accept him and are going to be cast like sheep separated from the goats into eternal damnation. I want him to be my leader. Then the Lord said to Moses, write this whole story on a scroll as a reminder and recite it to Joshua, because I will utterly blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven. So Moses built an altar and named it, "The Lord is my banner." That's how this story ends. So we see God not only delivering his people, but executing judgment on evil and using the people to do it. Okay, we could do a whole class on just defense, arms, and Second Amendment, and how do we defend physically in a spiritual battle? It's not that simple. It's a combination of things, like the formula that comes out here. It's prayer, it's faith, it's taking godly action, whatever is appropriate for the circumstances, for the right reason, and having others to support us. Somebody read from Deuteronomy, verse 17 in chapter 25.
When the Lord your God gives you rest from enemies around you in a land that blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven. Do not forget.
I'm coming back to this passage because I want to make the point that this is not just physical death. When the Lord fights our battles against evil and there are people involved, it is physical and spiritual death forever. Revelation 20. This is the end game for anybody that doesn't have the Lord as their king. If anyone who was found whose name was not written in the book of life, he was thrown into the lake of fire. In Matthew 25:46, and they will go away into eternal punishment, but the righteous into eternal life. So, final thoughts. I mean, we could talk about these questions or we could talk about our personal circumstances. But I think that for every one of us, we've been in a situation, we are in a situation, or you will be soon, or you know somebody now that probably needs to hear this. Because, again, our natural tendency is to choose the wrong path. We don't go to prayer first. We don't get on our knees, but we should. But even when we have faith that the Lord is going to protect us and deliver us, it still requires our action. So which action? Godly action. He'll show us. And we need others around us. Otherwise, we're going to have excuses for why we did something stupid. Right? I mean, that's not a Bible verse, but should be. Okay. So what do you need to do with this information? Let's close with that. What's the Lord telling you right now in your circumstances?
Just to not be still when there's evil going on around you. If you have an opportunity, like I've kind of learned this, to go to some of these school board meetings or stand up once in a while if there's something that you can do, don't just be uninvolved.
Yeah, that reminds me of the video we just watched a couple weeks ago of the train car of Jews that were being taken to slaughter, and the church that would just sing a little louder so they wouldn't have to hear the cries of the people in the boxcars. Oh, they were in church. No, that's not what God wants us to do. Most of the believers of that day wished that they had fought back against the uprise of an evil government. And today, there will be Christians all over the United States that will be embarrassed to stand before the Lord that they did nothing during the uprise of an evil government. Because God will hold every single person responsible for what you did or did not do. Anything else? What's God telling you?
I think one of the things is pray, ask God, God, what do you want me to do? What is your plan? How, we see all these things that are going on. Because what God tells me to do might be something different from what He tells him to do, or you to do, or someone else. But just seek God and ask for wisdom. God, we see all the things that are going on in the world. Maybe pray that God will bring someone in your life that you could share the gospel with. Maybe, it could be, hey, maybe there's an opportunity to volunteer for something. There could be a lot of different things that we could do. Just ask God for wisdom in that.
Yeah, and you're not going to do that unless you're on your knees.
Yeah.
I know that that's the mistake I make. I mean, I've got life experience and I'm kind of old, so I have a lot of things I can draw on for ideas. And I have all these things that go through my mind, like how should I respond to something? And I think sometimes with my wisdom and brilliance, I've got the master strategy, and I don't fall on my knees first. I mean, I'm guilty of that. But what I should do, and then when God says, okay, now that you're listening to me, I want you to get up, and I want you to walk around the city and blow your trumpets and make silly sounds. And you're like, what? Why? That makes no sense. And then God just says, do it. And so when God says, heap kindness on somebody, when God says, go negotiate, go mediate, when God says,